As the title credits roll, we retreat out of the network of neurons and brain cells and find ourselves emerging from a pore on the sweat-drenched skin of the main character, our narrator, as he peers down the barrel of a gun that has been forced into his mouth. A man named Tyler is holding the gun while checking the time and counting down to ground zero before asking the narrator if he has anything to say. Before the pistol is taken away, the narrator mumbles through it and then states plainly that he is at a struggle to speak. The narrator starts to describe how he first met Tyler before interrupting himself and taking us to the start of the story as Tyler peers out of the high-rise window at the shadowy city below them. He hasn't slept in 6 months, the narrator claims. He travels frequently for his job as a traveling product recall specialist for a car business, dealing with bouts of jet lag in addition to the regular stress of his job, and loving the small life of single-serving soap and shampoo at every place, which doesn't help his insomnia. He is a self-described slave of materialism, so when he can't sleep, he surfs the channels or peruses furni catalogs to find the next piece of furniture to add to his residence. He visits his doctor in search of assistance, but all the doctor can provide is a recommendation to take a herbal supplement rather than medication and to attend to a support group for testicular cancer to witness actual suffering. There, the narrator meets Robert Bob Paulson, a former bodybuilder and steroid user known as the Big Moozy, who has a severe case of gynecomastia as a result of hormone therapy after having his testicles removed. Bob is more than happy to back the narrator with a hug. The narrator ultimately finds serenity while trapped between Bob's massive breasts, breaking down in sobs. He may then fall asleep thanks to the emotional release, and he develops an addiction on support groups, planning out his week to attend several meetings while claiming illness. The narrator's system is upset when a woman called Marla Singer shows up, though. Having seen her at numerous meetings, including one about testicular cancer, he identifies her as a tourist, and her lies have troubled him to the extent that he is unable to sleep. He confronts her after just one encounter. The groups are cheaper than a movie and there's free coffee, she quips, arguing that she is doing exactly what he does. They settle on splitting up the week and exchanging phone numbers rather than turning on one another. The narrator tries to sleep, but his sleeplessness persists. The narrator meets Tyler Durden on a flight home from one of his work travels. They start a casual conversation when Tyler provides a new take on the emergency procedure instructions in the aircraft. If Tyler isn't working evenings as a projectionist and inserting bits of erotica between reels, he is a soap salesperson. Before taking a taxi home, the narrator learns that his suitcase has been taken upon arriving at the baggage claim, probably as a result of an enigmatic vibration. But, house, a condominium on the 15th floor, was blown into the night by what was thought to be a faulty gas line that had been started by a spark from the refrigerator. The narrator locates Tyler's business card and contacts him when he has nowhere else to go. Tyler offers the narrator the chance to move in with him on the condition that he hit Tyler as hard as he can when they first meet in the parking lot of a bar. Despite being perplexed, the narrator agrees, and they fight with their fists before enjoying a few beers. The situation is unexpectedly exhilarating, and when Tyler and the narrator return to his dilapidated home, it is obvious that Tyler is squatting there. Tyler and the narrator participate in numerous fights over the following days and they eventually draw the attention of other tough guys. Tyler creates a formal fight club in the basement of the bar where they had their first fight after noticing that their little fighting gang was expanding. The number of members grows quickly, and Tyler and the narrator create a set of rules, the first two of which are you do not talk about Fight Club. Members routinely break the restrictions and invite their friends to join them. Tyler confirms his perceptive, albeit unconventional and unethical, outlook on life. The narrator unexpectedly runs across Marla and informs her that he hasn't been to any previous sessions since he's joined a new support group for males exclusively. And the same. When she takes too much Xanax, she calls the narrator, who hangs up after getting sick of hearing her ramble. Later, much to the narrator's disgust, he learns that Tyler had picked up the phone, followed the call to Marla's place, and brought her back there where they had passionate sex. The narrator discovers Marla the following morning in the kitchen, and he is shocked to see her in his home. She feels insulted by the narrator's surprise, so she walks out in disgust. Tyler happily confesses that he and Marla had sex the night before as soon as she exits the kitchen. Additionally, he solemnly demands that the narrator swear not to ever mention Tyler to Marla. Later evening, as Tyler grabs human fat from a liposuction clinic's garbage, the narrator joins him. According to Tyler, the best fat for manufacturing the soap he sells comes from people. Tyler instructs the narrator on how to render tallow from the fat when they are back in their kitchen. Tyler gives the narrator a wet kiss on the back of the hand after briefly describing the history of soap making before dumping pure lye on the area to cause a terrible chemical burn. Tyler says that washing the lye off the narrator's hand will make the burn worse and claims that the burn is a rite of passage because he has burned his own hand in a similar fashion. The narrator is made to swear allegiance to Tyler, and after applying vinegar to soothe the burn, Tyler makes the narrator do it. The narrator makes a comment about Tyler's soap's expensive amount when they meet with a cosmetics salesperson at a department shop later. He holds a college dropout at gunpoint along the narrator and threatens to kill him if he doesn't follow his ambition of becoming a veterinarian. He consents to being beat up by Lou, the proprietor of the pub where their fight club meets, before spitting blood all over him and requesting to remain in the cellar. Lou agrees, also horrified. Tyler assigns the club members a homework assignment in which they are all required to engage in a fight with an unrelated person and lose. It's a far more difficult process than anyone would anticipate, the narrator claims. Bob harasses people at a plaza in the city, and another member argues with a clergyman. After a few days, Marla goes away, and Tyler tells the narrator about his most recent obsession. Tyler has transformed the basement of the house into a laboratory where he produces explosives using his expert soap-making abilities. Fight Club management is still being done by Tyler and the narrator, but now on a completely different schedule. When his boss disagrees and summons security, the narrator severely beats himself up, leading security to assume that the narrator's boss assaulted his employee by the time they arrive. At some point, Tyler gives his recruits homework and preaches to them about the dangers of materialism and relying too much on society and authority figures. He suggests going back to a time when a man's value was determined by the amount of sweat on his back and when he just used what was necessary. Fighting in basements develops into what Tyler refers to as Project Mayhem, and the destruction and vandalism become prankish. When the lead investigator notices their actions, Tyler is able to demonstrate that they are dependent on the exact individuals he is hunting: waiters, bus drivers, sewer engineers, and more. The investigation is suspended after they threaten to castrate the police chief. The dilapidated house where Tyler and the narrator reside becomes Mayhem Center, where each new recruit is put through a demanding period of initiation and training and where the newest schemes are conceived. While Project Mayhem progresses, the narrator begins to feel more and more alienated from Tyler and jealousy creeps in, leading him to beat up and disfigure one recruit because he wanted to ruin something beautiful. Tyler takes the narrator and two members of the Fight Club in a big Lincoln Town car as they leave the meeting. Tyler teases the narrator in the rain, suggesting that he hasn't even started living his life to the fullest. Tyler chastises the narrator for being weak and pitiful as he let the automobile to drift towards oncoming traffic. Tyler then comes clean about destroying the narrator's residence. As the narrator eventually caves, Tyler allows the car to drift, and they collide with another car. As they escape from the collision, Tyler declares that the narrator now has a new life as a result of surviving a near-death experience. As Tyler suddenly vanishes, the narrator is alone at home with an ever-growing group of Mayhem members who watch television and giggle at their widely publicized mischief. Bob tells the narrator, "The first rule of Project Mayhem is you do not ask questions," as the narrator presses for additional information about their wrongdoing. Later, after Bob is killed in an unsuccessful sabotage attempt, the narrator attempts to dissolve the group before things spiral out of control. He searches for Tyler and finds a list of recent phone numbers Tyler used. The narrator follows the list across the nation and finds that fight clubs have sprung up all over the place. The narrator asks the bartender if he recognizes him after being addressed as Sir at one particular bar. The bartender reveals to the narrator that he is Tyler Durden after being convinced that he is not being put through a test. The narrator returns to his hotel room in amazement and contacts Marla to inquire about their history of having sex. Marla acknowledges their relationship and says she knows him as Tyler Durden, despite her irritation. Tyler unexpectedly enters the room after Marla hangs up and confronts the narrator, informing him he broke his agreement not to mention Tyler to Marla. After a brief exchange, it is obvious that they are speaking about the same individual. The narrator suffers from sleeplessness. As a result, Tyler's ego takes over whenever he believes he is, or at various times throughout the day. The narrator passes out after the enlightenment. When he awakens, he discovers a second phone list next to him that contains calls from all across the nation. When he gets back home, it is completely vacant, except one bulletin board has a display of files with information on specific structures in the financial area. He discovers that each of them has been compromised by members of Project Mayhem, and Tyler intends to destroy them in order to wipe the slate clean by erasing the records of the credit card companies. In a fit of rage, the narrator gathers all the relevant details and reports himself to the neighborhood police. The narrator learns that the officers are Mayhem members after telling the inspector what he knows and being left with just two officers. They tell him that he gave them instructions to remove the balls of anyone interfering with Project Mayhem, including him. By taking one of the officer's pistols, the narrator is able to flee, and he then runs to one of the structures planned for demolition. He attempts to defuse the device after discovering an unmarked van in the parking garage that is loaded with nitroglycerin. Tyler shows there and taunts him, but the narrator is able to defuse the explosives. Since the narrator is only fighting himself, he and Tyler get into a physical altercation that strangely appears on the security cameras. The Tyler personality triumphs and detonates the bomb once more, and the narrator brings himself to another structure so they can view the carnage without danger. The narrator returns to the opening scene with the gun in his mouth and says to Tyler, "I still can't think of anything." Tyler chuckles and says, "Oh, flashback humor." Tyler refuses to give up on the endeavor despite the narrator's pleas. The employees who work in the buildings are all Mayhem members, fully aware of the plan, he claims, and he is liberating mankind from the oppression of consumerism and superfluous luxury. Nearing his breaking point, the narrator learns that he is capable of doing anything Tyler does. He observes Tyler holding the gun and recognizes that it is in Tyler's grasp. He raises it to his chin and commands Tyler to pay attention to him. He puts the rifle in his mouth and pulls the trigger after claiming that his eyes are open. Tyler is killed with a gaping wound to the back of his skull after the bullet exits the side of his jaw. Members of Project Mayhem show in with snacks and Marla in tow as the narrator is recovering. Tyler had previously instructed her to be brought to them. The Mayhem members leave Marla alone with Tyler to get some medical supplies after noticing his wounds. As the first explosion sets the building in front of them on fire, Tyler stands next to Marla and assures her that everything will be alright. As soon as the other residents on the block do the same, Tyler takes Marla's hand and says, "You met me at a really unusual point in my life." They observe the buildings collapsing as the explosives explode. Well, that's all for today's video. We hope you enjoyed it, and please support us by subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to get notification for new videos every we post.